Okay. And one more time for those of you who don't want to. For those of you whose microphone will activate, please mute it if you're not gonna say anything, because I cannot come and mute all the mics. Could you please mute your microphone, please? Please mute your microphone. Please mute your microphone. Could you please mute your microphone? Mr. Starmet, please mute your microphone, please. Okay. Seems there's a problem on his microphone. Let's go ahead and start the session. Today we're going to start the external environment analysis. We talked about the analysis. Please mute your microphone. It's in the class. Dear Nadia, please give me your email and I will send it to you. Have you received the one for the previous session? Interrupting the class. Please mute your microphone. Are please mute your microphone. Please mute your microphone. It's really bothering the class, please. Let me get some help from the admin.
میگه خواهم میکنم چی کنیم؟ اینجا خوب است دارو طرف پیش.
Okay, I was trying to find out VB admin how to mute uh, the microphones. It seems that some of you are confused. For your microphone to be mute, there should be a red button in front of your name showing a microphone, and there is a line canceling it. So make sure you have muted, and muting means that red button is in front of your name. So I mute you all, but some of you unmute, and that's really disturbing the class. So I urge you to please make sure that you mute your microphones. So please make sure you do that. Okay, so let's get back to the topic. We're going to cover the external environment analysis. If you remember the previous session, we talked about different types of analysis, which covers the SWOT analysis, which is external and internal. So for business strategy, for you to be able to analyze your business, your competitors, and come up with a good business strategy plan, you should be able to analyze externally. So externally analyze the competitiveness, the industry, and all that. So this session, we're going to cover the external environment analysis. So let's move forward and discuss this slide. Okay. So we call it, though, macro environmental forces. So Michael Porter, when he devised the business strategy back in the 80s, he came up with the idea of macro environmental forces. So those are inclusive of all these aspects. We have economic, we have socio-cultural, we have global, we have technological, we have political, and we have demographic. So talking of economic aspect, of course, the economy, like external economy, the regional, the worldwide economy, plays a very important role in strategies. Then socio-cultural. Again, I see that some of you have not muted your microphone, so please again mute your microphone. I cannot just chase after you and mute your microphone. You please make sure you mute your microphone. And this time is Mr. Rashidi. Please make sure your microphone is mute. And for it to be mute, there should be that red button in front of your name. Right-click on that microphone in front of your name and click mute. So that way you will mute your microphone. Okay? Okay. So we have economic, social-cultural, global, technological, political, and demographic. So social-cultural, the culture of the society, how the society, how their behaviors are. It's also important in the strategy. Then the global forces. We are living and the microphone is still not mute, and this time is, what was this time? I think it's still Mr. Rashidi. Okay. So economic, social, culture, then global. I was saying that it's the global aspect of the strategy. Technological. Technology is also very important and an important role player because technology is changing. We are in a turbulent environment and technology is changing every single day. Political. There are a lot of political and legal changes. A very good example would be like different treatments in the regions. We have ASEAN treatment, we have NAFTA, which is North American free trade agreement. All these agreements and legal changes will play an important role in the economy and also in the strategy. Then we have demographic, yeah, like WTO. And then demographic, which is the age and different characteristics of the people that you're addressing as your customers and clients. So their gender, their education, all those like characteristics of your clients also is an important factor. Then we have industry environment, threat of new entrants, power of suppliers, power of buyers. What is that noise? Okay. Threat of new entrants, power of suppliers, power of buyers, product of substitutes, and intensity of rivalry. So these are also important when we have new entrants coming in. Basically, that's kind of dangerous to your company as a competition factor, because when it's easy for competitors to come in and compete, that would be something that you might want to consider when it comes to your strategies. Because if it's a tough business to come in, you would be rest assured that it's not easy for competitors to just start a business similar like your business and compete against you. But then it's so easy every single day. You might get a lot of other competitors. Their competitors might double, and then your difficulty competing against those other companies will be much more. So that is also very important. And then we have power of suppliers. We have this power of suppliers, buyers competition out there. So suppliers are those who are supplying the stuff to you, because when you're producing a product, you're purchasing those from a supplier. So when the suppliers have have power over you, then that's kind of scary. Or power of buyers, when there are not many buyers, for those businesses that are only a few buyers out there. When you're dealing with a niche market and there are few buyers out there, they have a lot of power over you. You should satisfy them, because if you lose those buyers, there are not any other buyers out there. So you are providing services or producing products for those groups, and your products should be unique enough for them to be happy. And if they're not, then you will lose them. So product substitutes. So when you are producing a product and that product is not that unique and customers can easily find something like substituting it with another product, then again, that's also a concern. So then the last one, yeah, the warranty or so many different sodas out there. We have, of course, we have Pepsi and Coca-Cola, but for those who are new, there's several out there. You know, there are different names, Fanta, all those, you just name it. There are so many out there. And that's tough for someone who is like entering the market. And then intensity of rivalry. It's sometimes it can get very intense, you know. Like when you look at Microsoft and like those giant companies and how they compete, you see it gets pretty intense. Like just this last week, we had a big lawsuit filed by Tiffany, the jewelry company, against Costco. So basically, the thing is, Costco is a retailer who provides much cheaper products, because they sell in bulks. So people go there and like their products are bundled in bigger size, so they're the lowest price. So Costco put some of Tiffany's rings in their selection as their sale stuff, and Tiffany has filed a lawsuit against them because they said you should not put our products. We never put sale on our products, so they're pursuing a major lawsuit. So you see that the intensity of rivalry is pretty tough, because there will be lawsuits, there will be fights against companies for them to be able to compete and keep their brand and name the way it is. And of course, media is also the medium here for them to project their opinions, their brands, and all those kind of things. Yeah, it's a medium, or it's a tool. Yeah. So the general environment, dimensions in the broader society that influence an industry and the firms within it. So all these aspects we were just briefly overviewing, these are dimensions of a broader society, and they influence the industry and all the firms in that industry. So if it's car industry or whatever industry, so this chart, if you will, is really helpful, because it's not just geared to one certain type of industry. Whatever industry or whatever type of business you're doing, you can always look at it with all these respects, and that's actually very, very useful for you guys to put that in your projects, your final projects. You definitely want to review within all these factors when you are comparing, when I give you the topic for your project, your final project in the next few sessions. Please make sure you will include that in your project, because basically for any strategy or any business strategy model that you devise, you always want to cover the economic, social, cultural, global, technological, political, and demographic aspects. So these are really important when you're comparing strategies or when you're coming up with a new strategy. You should take into consideration all of these for your strategy to be solid enough to be doable. Because if you have not covered any of these, like let's say you miss economic or global or political or any of these, then you're missing a major chunk of the requirements for your strategy to be complete, because if you have not covered the political or legal, then how could you possibly implement that strategy? Because there could be legal problems or political problems in implementing that strategy. So you got to make sure when you are coming up with a strategy and you're presenting your strategy to a company or to an entrepreneur, you are telling them about all of these aspects, so when you're making the decision, they know that your plan, your model has already covered those, and it's ready to be implemented. Because any of these missing, your strategy will not be ready to be implemented. Are there any questions so far? Any comments or questions? Okay. So we go to the next slide. Industry environment. So set of factors directly influencing a firm and its competitive actions and competitive responses. So we were just talking about this. The industry environment in itself has some factors also. So other than those, the external, you have within the industry, there are some external factors as well. So we were just covering those. So we covered the threat of new entrants. We talked about it. We realized that when it's easy for the competitors to come in, when let's say it's so easy to devise basically a mouse pad nowadays. Mouse pads are the easiest things for producers to make. So there will be several companies producing mouse pads. And so the threat of, if you are like making some good money in the market in producing mouse pads, you could always expect there will be another company coming in and you'll lose out because it's so easy to make it. But let's say if you are producing the CPUs for computers, there are not many companies out there producing those. There will be perhaps Intel or some major companies out there, and so because it's so complicated, not everyone can get those tools to be able to produce those. So it's really important when it comes to the type of product that it determines if it's easy or difficult for other entrants to enter the market. Then power of suppliers, I was talking about it. For example, there's a company called Walmart, and Walmart is a retail shop. Please make sure your microphone is mute again. If you want to talk in the class, you're more than welcome to talk. You can always raise your hand, express your opinion, your comment. But please just be careful. Just don't unmute your microphone. And if it does, just please mute it immediately, because it will disturb the class. So I was just talking about the suppliers, the power of suppliers. And what happens is a company like Walmart, which is a retail shop, for them to be able to provide the low cost products, because Walmart is known for the cheapest product. Like if you want to buy something the cheapest possible, you'll go to Walmart, and they are able to do that because they only deal with very, very low-cost suppliers. So they get their products with the lowest cost possible. So then that's how you see the power of buyer and supplier is important here. Because Walmart is a big company, because it's so powerful, it's easy for them to tell the supplier what to do and what not to do. If they discontinue a supplier, it will hurt them a lot, because Walmart is a huge company. When they go to when they open a Walmart in a city, that actually increases a lot of jobs. It creates a lot of jobs. It actually makes companies go out of business, like other retail shops that they were doing business out there. When they open up one, it can affect their business also. So you see how strong the buyer is here. So you see that the strength of Walmart as a buyer will exceed and overshadow the power of the suppliers. So here, the supplier has no say. But let's say you're just a small new company, you're just a small new retail shop, and then suppliers out there would be much stronger in telling you what to do. So you cannot tell them, okay, if you don't do that for me, I'm going to discontinue you, because you have not much power out there. And then, so here you as a buyer, I mean, buyer doesn't necessarily mean the customer. Buyer could mean you as the one who buys the materials from the supplier to produce the products, right? So you as a buyer here do not have that much power. Or if, let's say, the buyers are your clients, then again, as I mentioned earlier, if your buyers, your clients are not many out there, you're just focusing on a niche market. Like, let's say we're talking about those very, very exclusive watches that are out there with certain products that use their price from anywhere from $70-something thousand and above. So when you go to that type of shops, that sort of only ordered by order type of watches, there are not many customers who will like those type of watches. So you as a seller, you got to make sure you are satisfying your buyers. So buyers could play an important role. And then threat of product substitutes. We talked about it earlier. If there are substitutes like sodas, if there's anything else that you can use, that's also important, because if your price goes up, customers can easily choose another substitute. And if it's very identical or very similar, there's a very good chance that you will lose out. But if your product is very unique, there are not many substitutes out there. Even when the price goes up, there's a less chance of your customers to go for a substitute. The power of buyer could also be translated in how they're willing to spend their money. But the power of the buyer is they could use their purchasing power. They could just stop purchasing, and that's how they show their power. But it is not exactly the same. The power of the buyer means the control they have over this relationship. So let's say you are the seller and you have your buyer, right? So if you are in control, you say, I want to sell my product at this price, and that's it. And the buyer has to accept it, because let's say you have the unique product that nobody else has, and you are able to set the price at whatever amount you want. That's your power. But let's say your buyer is powerful, because there are only a few buyers out there, and if they stop buying your product, you'll go out of business. So that means they have a lot of power, not necessarily how much they can afford to purchase, but how much control they have over this relationship. So that's when the buyer is pretty powerful, and they can use that power to make you do stuff the way they want you to do. So that's basically what we mean by the power. We don't necessarily mean their purchasing power, but we mean the power and control they have over you. Does that answer? Is it one of them? It is one of them. Yeah, it could be seller or the buyer. It could be the supplier or the buyer. Sometimes there is a balance. Normally, the market will balance out at a certain level. I mean, the power of suppliers and the power of buyers will balance each other at a certain level. So it'll, they're always pushing for more power. You as a supplier want more power, and your buyers want more power. Or if you're a buyer, you want more power. You want to increase your power in order to be able to have more say in the market. So it's not stable, but it gets balanced at certain levels for periods of time. Let's say for Walmart to become so powerful, they started pretty small. They were a milk delivery company. Yes, the next one I will cover that. I was just discussing this that let's say Walmart was very small as a milk delivery company, and for them to become so powerful, it takes several years. So they don't start powerful, but their intention is to become powerful. So the intensity of rivalry among competitors also we kind of covered in the previous slides. So it's when the competitors are competing against each other. I provided the example of Tiffany and Costco. So Tiffany is filing a lawsuit against Costco, and it's just because they want to make sure their products is safe and their branding and their imaging is not hurt, being projected as a low cost, because Tiffany is a very high-end product, and the company doesn't want their product to be sold in a low-cost retail shop. So you see the competition. Like you look at Google and Microsoft, how intense they try to come up with exact same methods. Like Microsoft last year came with the Bing. Bing is the research engine, same as Google research engine. They really want to compete against. They want to provide exactly same services and products. So you see that the competition is pretty stiff. You come up with an idea today, and next day the other company, the other major competitors will come up with a similar product. So you see, it's pretty tough out there. And a comment from Mr. Sahab: in a traditional economic model, competition of rivals derives profit to zero. Where's the crossing there? Yes, it does. So as you can see, the prices and the competition level changes. Okay, you're welcome. So let's go to the next slide. We have competitor environment. So all of the companies that firms compete against. So we have the competitor environment where it's just the environment that the competitors are competing against each other. To answer your question, Mr. Samir, it's not necessarily easy to substitute. For your example, that you mentioned Coke and let's say Pepsi, because they are long established and stable, you see they have the biggest chunk of the market. It is not just because of their prices. When it comes to pricing, Coke and Pepsi are priced pretty competitively, but because the customers have already created that relationship and that bonding, and their image is so well established in the basically minds and the culture, it's not easy for customers to substitute those. But for those products that they're not well established, it's easier for customers to just use a substitute. And you're just using some, let's say the same example as a mouse pad or pens. Even pens, there are major pens like Parker or all these different good brand names that are well established there. It's not as easy to to change. But like, let's say if you're producing a regular pen, not a branded version, it's easier to substitute. So there are a lot of factors involved when it comes to substitution. So how well established your brand is, how well your customers have created a relationship, and how well you have created a relationship with your customers. These are all important, and so it's not easy necessarily for any product to be substituted, but for a lot of products it is. Especially when it comes only to pricing. When customers are looking at your product and buying it only because your price is competitive, the substitution is very, very possible. But when the customers are choosing your product for other reasons, we will discuss that in more details in future, in next sessions. Like, what are the major factors that causes a company to succeed, and those are really important. You're welcome. So, more on analysis of an external environment. So, general environment, we focus on the future. So, looking back at the general environment, all these aspects, you need to have a futuristic approach. Your focus is on the future. So consider that when you're doing your project, or when you're doing any project, when you're devising a strategy plan, a strategy model for your own company, for your own job, make sure you focus on the future. You have a futuristic approach. When it comes to the industry environment, make sure you focus on factors and conditions influencing your firm's profitability. So highlight that term in your mind. You are trying to analyze the profitability. When you're doing an industry comparison and environment analysis, make sure you want to see how much profitable you are or you will be within that industry. Why? How could you be more profitable? How could you increase your profit and revenue? Then competitor environment. Focus on predicting the dynamics of competitors' actions, responses, and intentions. So the competitor environment, you want to predict as much as possible. When you look at Apple company has been so successful because they have been able to predict the reactions of the competitors in the market, and they've been able to pretty successfully manage that. You see, when they come up with their tablet, first of all, they were complicated enough that it took the other companies quite a while to come up with something similar, like called tablet. So that gave them enough time to get established. So iPads are now interchangeably used as tablets. So you might buy their customers. It's not correct, but it's true that some customers, they buy a tablet from Samsung or Motorola or other companies, and they call it an iPad, not knowing that iPad is only for Apple, and it's the tablet that Apple company produces, they call it iPad. So you cannot call any other tablet from any other company iPad, but iPad has set a very strong tone that customers use iPad name even for other companies' products. So that's how strong a branding could be. So you see how well they predicted the reactions of the other company, and basically they focused on very innovative product, which turned out to be the most innovative product of 2011. So they came up with that idea, and they had enough time to get well established for the customers. and that's how they predicted the reactions of other companies. Then when you're talking about competitor environment again, so dynamics of competitors, actions, responses, and intentions. So when you're looking at your competitor, let's say you're a tire producer company, and you wanna do an external environment analysis. So when you look at, okay, that's a good example. Let's say you are a nonprofit organization analyzing external environment. As a nonprofit organization, you might still, and you definitely still are competing against other companies. A lot of times, nonprofit organizations are government companies. The government is sponsoring your company to perform and do a job. Let's say you're a non-government company trying to revamp and reduce the poverty in your region. That's a great cause and noble purpose, and you're trying to, let's say, reduce the poverty in your region. You're sponsored by government. You're a nonprofit, let's say, organization. But how could you compare yourself and do the analysis with other competitors? So you could focus on your performance, and you could focus on comparing yourself with other non-for-profit companies doing the same thing. Let's say there's definitely a big one in Bangladesh or in other countries all around you, and you can see how well they perform. Yeah, like let's say you're an NGO. So when you're focusing on general environment, you want to see future changes. You want to see the economical, going back to this chart, you want to make sure economical, socio-cultural, global, technological, political, and demographic is well considered in your case, because these will be the same. These are external. And then when it comes to the competitor environment, you will compare yourself with other NGOs that are also nonprofit, or even when you're comparing yourself with for-profit similar companies, you will see how your performance is being done. Or for those NGOs, you need sponsors. So for you to be able to win over those sponsors, you need to have a solid plan. So you can still also compare yourself in winning over sponsors and compare yourself with other government companies or other NGOs or other for-profit companies in all these different respects. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you got to be a for-profit company to be able to do an external analysis. You can still focus on, instead of profitability at this time, you can talk about your viability of businesses. Because for an NGO to be able to survive, you need sponsors and you need projects coming in your way. So for you to be able to get those projects and those sponsors, you need to be able to be doing well in the industry environment. And so the sponsors think you are the one to go to if they want to reduce the poverty. So all these is not necessarily the profitability at this case. It could be your performance. They're not, but they are. You can look at the success of the projects. Let's say you have a project at a certain city. Let's say in Kabul, you want to reduce the poverty by 10%, right? 10% poverty you want to reduce, and you might use different tools and strategies, but your success rate in performing that will be considered. Are you following? Okay. So when it comes to different type of when it comes to different type of companies and whatever their purpose is, going back to the vision and mission and values. If you remember the session one, you had this basically discussion, vision, mission, values. That's very important. When you're comparing companies, also you got to look at their missions and visions and values, and then your comparison would be more towards realistic measurements, because the mission and vision of the company gives you a very good insight of the company. Because for NGOs again, for your plan, for a strategy model to be able to be done, you need support and sponsorship from whoever is sponsoring. So then again, that's something you got to focus on. You cannot just say because I'm an NGO, I can just focus on what I'm doing without any comparison and without any measurement techniques. Yeah, let me just double check. Can everyone hear me loud and clear? For those of you, thank you. Yeah, for those of you who have not a clear reception, I would say maybe you can log out and log back in. Sometimes it helps. Or restart your computer. And it might be your internet also. Yeah, it might be your internet also. Okay. So yeah. So then it's your reception then, your internet reception. Yes, that is correct. Yes, and please keep in mind that all these classes will be recorded, so you can always log back in and to the website and see the recorded versions. And you also have the slides, so you can also review them. It's on YouTube and I think on MLS. Okay. So let's talk about opportunities and threats. So external analysis, you're welcome. External analysis, we are talking about opportunities and threats, because it's very important when you are talking about opportunities and threats, you're not talking about something internal. If you remember the SWOT analysis, it was divided into strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The first important point I want to highlight is that the opportunities and threats are external, and then strengths and weaknesses are internal. Let me just double check. How's the quality of the voice for everyone? Can you just tell me? I want to make sure if everyone has a low quality, or Yeah, beautiful. So for those of you, again, who have problem, is because of your internet reception or your computer, maybe you can restart, or you can log out and log back in. So most of the students in the class have a good reception, good quality of sound, so I think that's the internet reception that you have a problem. Anyway, let's continue. So again, it's important to understand that your opportunities and threats is discussing the external side, and internal side is your strengths and weaknesses. Again, for your final project, make sure you keep that in mind, because it's a very common mistake when I see students in their analysis, they use that opportunity as a strength. When you're saying like our company has this strength, and you're saying an opportunity, which is an external, which is not supposed to be in that category. So make sure you keep that in mind, that when you are talking about external analysis for opportunities and threats, and when you're talking about strengths and weaknesses, you're putting as internal factors. So don't use an opportunity as a strength, because it's just an opportunity you have externally. Yes, that is true. So then let's talk about opportunities. A condition in general environment that, if exploited, helps a company achieve a strategic competitiveness is called opportunity. So basically, when you are in the market, in the environment, and the general environment helps you, or there is just a chance out there, and if you use that chance, you will get that competitiveness, or it gives you a strategic competitiveness. We call it an opportunity. Example, like a good example is when Bill Gates, when he devised his computers, he understood that people could use something called a computer that could help them do a lot of stuff like computations. They can have softwares and process stuff. So his idea was just an opportunity that he realized is missing in the market. And by introducing the computers, he's now #1 richest guy in the world. And his company is one of the most successful ones in the world. Let me see your examples. Mr. Harun gave us some examples. Opportunities. External environment analysis where we will certain new opportunities. And unfulfilled customer need. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Bill Gates found an unfulfilled customer need, which was a computer. Arrival of new technology. Then after he introduced computers, all those companies that understood and realized the new technology, which is a computer, is introduced in the market, they benefited from it as well. Then losing of regulations, like regulations for NAFTA, for ASEAN, all these help a lot of companies to benefit from it. Removal of international trade barriers. Yes, like North American Free Trade Agreement, or certain sanctions was removed on Cuba, so that helped them, stuff like that. Okay, so and then threat, a condition in the general environment that may hinder a company's effort to achieve a strategic competitiveness is also important. So when there is a condition, when there is a sanction, let's say, when there is a problem, when there is a war going on, all these kind of stuff can hinder and stop the company's effort or cause some troubles. So all these would be called threats. So one important point I want to make here is that it's important for you as a company, as an entrepreneur, as a manager, as a leader, to be able to turn a threat into an opportunity. It's really important. Like Ford, he divided his company back in Great Depression. So the depression was a major threat. A lot of companies went out of business, but the most leading, or the oldest car company in the world was created back in Great Depression. So there was a threat out there, but Ford used that threat to produce a car and created a company, created an industry called car industry, created thousands and millions of jobs. So basically, it's how you see the threat and how that threat will show you the needs of the market, unfulfilled needs, or failures in fulfilling needs, and finding out how you could revise that and then benefit from that situation and turn that threat to opportunities. There are departments in companies called threat or risk management department or threat management department, where their job is to find out how they can turn threats into opportunities. So it's not just a matter of theories, it's practically being practiced in a lot of big companies. So they want to make, like, a very good example, a very good recent example is for hackers and for viruses. There is a big discussion now among major computer companies or software companies. They are talking about hackers and how they can hack back, which means that they are trying to come up with an invasive plan. So it used to be that whenever there was a company and there was a hacker, they would just try to protect themselves. So now they're thinking of how they can hack back and get their information back and a lot of other stuff back. So you see how they're trying to turn that threat of being hacked into an opportunity to get something back. So, I mean, it's legally being discussed and it's not fully developed now, but the talk is already out there. People are talking about it, how they can hack back, being hacked and hacked back. So you see, it was a threat. It's a threat to be hacked, but how you can hack back and get some information back and probably some extra information back is something that these companies are considering. And they're involving their attorneys, and a lot of stuff is going on. So you see how people in the companies can find out they can turn threats into opportunities and vice versa. Okay. Opportunities, definitely they involve some risk taking. For sure, you gotta take some risk in order to utilize the opportunity, because otherwise it will not be an opportunity. It will be something that you've already been doing. So opportunities are those stuff that you have not been doing, and for you to do it, you're taking some risk. So definitely the factor of risk is involved, and that's how the threat appears also. External environment analysis. So an external environment analysis is the process, a continuous process. It involves a scanning, so for early signals of potential changes and trends in the general environment. Then monitoring is changes to see if a trend emerges from among those spotted scanning. Forecasting, projections of outcomes based on monitored changes and trends. And finally, assessing is the timing and significance of changes and trends on the strategic management of the firm. So it's important to follow this step. It's like when you're cooking, first you need to have your ingredients. So purchasing and preparing those stuff you need for cooking is the first step. That's like a scanning. You just look through and just scan without any purpose. You just scan and find out about changes and signals. So you just find the signals first. Then you monitor those changes. So it's like when you buy the ingredient, you start preparing, cutting the tomatoes or onions and all that. So, and then forecasting is you are projecting how the outcome, how the cooking conditions is going to affect your food. And finally, assessing is when you get it done. You want to make sure what time you cook, how long you cook, and all that. So that cooking example is the same way that you do the analysis, the environment analysis. First, you just scan, then you monitor, then you forecast, and then you assess. So the ladies in the class, I think they will understand pretty easy, and I'm sure the guys also who are good at eating this stuff will also understand that cooking has a procedure involved. So scanning, monitoring, forecasting, and assessing is the scanning search is just for signals. Let's say you are scanning, let's say you are a keyboard producer, right? You produce keyboards for computers. So for you to scan a market, all you need to do is to see what are the changes in keyboard industry. So scanning is not that you just find out the exact detailed, let's say, basically keyboard changes and what they are. You just find out about the changes first. You just identify those changes. And then, so from the whole keyboard industry, you narrow it down to changes. There are changes made. No matter what, there are changes. Then when you start looking at those changes and understanding those changes, then you monitor. Then when you forecast, you want to see those monitored changes, how they're going to affect and create outcome with those changes. And then assessing is finally where you find out the strategies out of that. Beautiful. So again, you here see early signals, detecting meaning is monitoring, developing projections, and determining the timing and importance. Scanning does not mean assessing. Assessing is the last step, and that is when you determine the timing and importance. So these are two separate matters. And this is very important in your projects also. Make sure when you are preparing your final project, I'm giving you some hints for your projects, what I want in your project. So make sure these are all included in your project. We will discuss your project in the next few sessions. I'll give you a detailed explanation of the project, and then you will understand, I mean, what exactly I want you guys to do, but I'm just giving you hints. Those of you who take notes, you can just take note that these are the stuff that I want in your project, so make sure they are in your project. General environment. The economic segment, you have in the class business economy, we do cover all those business economic factors and how business economics work. But just a general overview. First of all, I need to tell you that business economy is really the foundation for business strategy. So Michael Porter was an economist. So the guy who came up with the idea of business strategy was actually an economist. So understanding the economy and economics is really important in being a successful strategizer. So that's why economic segment, don't take it for granted. It's important to understand the inflation, the interest rate, trade deficits or surpluses. When you talk about GDP, GNP, what does that mean? The budget deficits or surpluses, personal savings rate, business savings rate, gross domestic product, all these are important. And then socio-cultural segment, women in the workplace. How many women do we have in the workplace? How many diversity we have from different races, different cultures, attitudes about quality of life. One of the importance and one of the important reasons that U.S. economy is so successful. I mean, even though we are under a recession, we are one of the biggest economies in the world. Regarding the size and the products involved, is because of the diversity. It's because of the diversity and because of having all these socio-cultural varieties there. We have women in workplace, a great number, attitudes about quality of life and work, and concerns about environment is there, and the shift in work in career preferences and shift in product and service preferences. So when you look at those, when you're looking back at the general environment analysis, you've got to cover all these as much as you can. So you see that general environment analysis is not just a simple, few sentences you talk about economics and all that. You've got to compare inflations and rates and interest rates and deficits and surpluses. So it's a big task. Don't take it for granted. You've got to cover all those as well. So then the global segment, you'll be talking about product innovations, applications of knowledge, focus of private and government-sponsored research and development expenditures, and new communication technologies. So when you're looking at global changes and global segments, you want to see product innovators. You want to see what innovation was done last year. One of the good places to look at. I mean, I'm not sure if you guys have heard of somewhere called TED, which is Technology, Entertainment, and Design. So Technology, Entertainment, Design. That's based in Long Beach, California. Every year they meet, and basically innovators from all around the world are invited, and basically they present their ideas. And there's also a subcategory called TEDx. I'm not sure if there's anyone in Afghanistan, but there might be. TEDx is a subcategory of TED where the presenter will choose some of the TED talks, and then they'll discuss it. I did a TEDx talk last year on happiness, and we discussed the basically a relationship of happiness and expectation and all that. But the reason I'm saying this is yes, I was just saying that I did a TEDx because it's just it's like a subcategory. That's why they call it TEDx. Anyway, the reason I mentioned that is because TED is a very good example and very good place for you guys to look for your companies and get ideas. Because what happens is in TED, there would be people, entrepreneurs, who attend and purchase the presenter's ideas. So if you are a person who wants to sponsor an idea and use those ideas, TED is a very great place. And also, if you have an idea, you could consider presenting it there, but it has to be a solid idea. It has to be accepted because this event is by invites only. Normally, for attending that conference, the cost is about $6,000. So it's not that everyone will just go there and have a peek. It's a very, very top-notch conference. So applications of knowledge. You want to see how knowledge is applied in the industry. If you are or have been in the industry for some time, you want to make sure that the knowledge is applied pretty solidly, and how it's applied, how you can apply, how you can learn from other companies in order to understand how to apply. And then new communication technologies. You want to see how technology, like we have all these features like WebEx. We are using WebEx for our classrooms. It's a huge change in the communication industry. You have a lot of stuff like Viber, Skype, Uvu, all these different tools and techniques for one to communicate. So communication is huge. A lot of those are providing business services as well as just consumer and personal services. So it's important to be able to discover those, analyze those. So when you're talking about the global segment, make sure you're covering these as well. Technological segment, product innovation, applications of knowledge, same kind of stuff you see in the technological segment. Then we have political, legal, antitrust laws, taxations, deregulations, labor training laws, education. Like President Obama just in his talk, he addresses the union after the election, and he talks about his plans, and he talked about increasing the minimum wage. So if minimum wage is being increased, that's already a huge change in the industry if it happens. So it will change a lot of stuff. And so it's a political or legal segment change. Demographic segment, population size, age structure, geographic structure, and then ethnic mix and income distribution. R&D is research and development, Ms. Nadia, which we discussed in the previous slide. R stands for research and D stands for development. Okay, so industry defined, a group of firms producing products that are closed substitutes. It's normally a department, but not necessarily. Sometimes marketing department or operation department does the research development. It could be just a project in that. But for big companies, for sure, it's a department because it's really important. A lot of companies basically practically research and development is for you to pave the way in order to grow and be successful in the future. So you want to do research and see how you can come up with new programs or new products or services. So it's really important in a company. Very expensive, so not every company can afford it. That's the first part of the company that they start cutting budget when it comes to cutting budget. But that's not necessarily the best way to do it. A group of firms producing products are close substitutes, firms that influence one another. There are firms that influence each other. So you cannot just say, okay, I'm this company, I'm producing my thing, and I do my thing, and I don't care about other companies. That's not the way it's done. Other companies, the way they do business, it affects yours and vice versa. So it's important to understand how you guys are sort of influencing each other. Includes a rich mix of competitive strategies that companies use in pursuing strategic competitiveness and above average return. So all these are important when it comes to, you got to understand what's the meaning of industry. So it has to be in the same category. Let's say car industry, you're producing car. Let's say dairy industry, you're producing dairy stuff like, I don't know, milk or whatever related to milk. You're producing telecommunication, so it's telecommunication industry, fashion industry. All these industries are producing and geared towards a certain product or service. Banking industry, all these kind of industries. Again, the 5 forces of competition model. We talk about threats of new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, rivalry, threat of substitute products, and bargaining power of buyers. we kind of discussed it. I want to stop here. Don't want to go any further. I want you, first of all, if there's any questions or comments before I give you the task for today. Anybody has any questions? Anything you need to talk about, you need to ask, or no? Okay. So let's go to your task. Okay. So your task is, please give an example of each of these dimensions in your industry. Okay. Whatever type of career you have, whatever job or whatever industry you are in, I want you guys to give me a practical example of your case. So don't give me a general example of a certain business. If you have an NGO, if you have if you work for government, wherever you work, give me an economic example, sociocultural, global, technological, political, and demographic example that affects your company or your job. Or if you don't have a job, if you're studying, you're a student, or you're researching, you can focus on education industry. So what are the economic examples for education industry? What is a socio-cultural example for education? Or whatever major that you have, you can pick your topic. Let's say if you're doing research on management, then you can talk of an economic example on that area, but preferably education. You just focus on education and give me an example. So not a general, Mr. An experienced and practical your example, not a general example, but a general environment example. And as I said, the reason I give you these tasks is not to ask you to do something extra or give you trouble. I think this is the most useful part of the class, because the way I see it, you're all professionals. You're all already in the business industry. You are all working or mastering your major and ready to get into the market. You're all professionals. And it is important for you to be able to apply any of these concepts into your practical everyday job. Without that, I think there is no point taking MBA courses. If you are taking an MBA course, if you are taking business strategy class, you should be able to apply any of these like immediately to your own job. So that's the reason I give you tasks, because I want you to feel comfortable applying all these into your everyday job. Or you can just write it in the chat box, and then you will email it to me next day. I thank you for those of you who send me your tasks, by the way. I received them all. Those of you who send me, I receive them. Thank you. I'll keep that in my file, and please just stick to these examples. So if you want to add natural could fall under the category of perhaps economic or global. So don't add another. The question is, again, as I typed it up there, it's give me an example of all these dimensions in your own industry. So I give you a couple minutes. Are there any questions? Is it clear? Everybody knows the question? Okay, so take a couple minutes and write it down in the chat box. We'll discuss it so everyone understands it. And then basically you can email it to me by end of next day. Yes, But before that, let's just discuss it in the class because I want you guys to do it right now. I don't want you guys to do it later. Just do it right now, and as you're doing it, you can start typing. So type it down there, and we will read it together, and we basically discuss it together. Okay. Okay. I don't see your. Okay. So let me read your examples before. Oh, you're welcome. But the class is not ended. Please stay in the class while we are discussing your answers, please. Copy. Okay. Okay. So security situation in Afghanistan it's really affect our organizational work mostly in the provinces. Yeah, Mr. Rahimi says he works in it's a Salat internet, and I'm not satisfied with it's still. Okay, I don't see any answers. I'm working in agriculture industry. I will give general environment economic example. If if my industry sales drop down, it will affect the company's economic situation. Oh, you see, Mr. Kakar, you are talking about internal change. Again, this is the common mistake. When you're talking about general analysis, it's external economic changes. So you're using an internal example and for this case, which is not correct. And our organization wants to apply HRMIS, government sector. Mr. Nuristani, again, your company, not internal, external analysis. So don't talk about what your company is doing. Talk about what's happening outside the company that affects your. So what happens in the economy outside in the industry that changes your thing. And economic dimensions for your company training program. Again, inside company, no, I'm talking about external example. Global rather than often used in exchange in international. Yeah, Mr. Mahfouz Aryan, you're just giving a explanation of global, but what I meant was an example how it affects your company or your industry. Socio-cultural, you provide good agriculture. Again, Mr. Kakar, you're talking about your own company. We're talking about external examples. Okay, Ms. Sami, you are a PhD student. You're focused on education. Economics is where people get better in a country. They can better high. Perfect, yes. Socio-cultural, better higher social environment. That is good. That is a good example. Then Mr. Jawdullah, economic as a social will be implemented. Salaries range will change according. Buyer will be increased. Social cultural when the level of buying decreases, behavior of customers will change. It will go to substitutes. Global, international companies will show interest. Yes, Mr. Jawdullah, your example is also very good. Our female staff income. Again, Mr. Harun, you see, you're talking about your company. When we are talking about general analysis, you're talking about outside events affecting your company. You see, you missed that point that I was trying to highlight. When we are talking about external analysis, please make sure you're not talking about what you do in your company. It's what has been done outside the company that changes the stuff in your company. When you're saying economic, like Miss Sami's example, like increase in people's economical situation, makes them be able to afford higher education. So that's economy change, how it affects the education industry. Or for Mr. Jawdullah, you see how technology day by day changes the market in Afghanistan. All these like external changes, how it affects your company. So please make sure you understand that while you're doing this task, and that's why I gave you this task, in order to make sure you understood the concept. So as you can see, most of you were still confused about that thing. It's very important. I want you to, your takeaway for this session, I want you to be an understanding of external factors are outside your company. So the moment you say, in our company we want to do that, it's not external, it's internal already. So if you have an agricultural company, you want to say economic changes in agricultural and how it affects your company. Farmers are now using agricultural advanced machinery, which resulted in more agricultural land development and has increased our company. So yes, you got it. Mr. Kakar, you got it. So you see how changes outside will cause changes inside. That's what you want to do. Is everybody clear on this concept? Any questions? Any confusion or questions you want to put out there? Yeah. Thank you. I just please take these tasks in the class pretty seriously. Don't leave before we end the class. I ask all of you that until I say the class is ended, the class is not ended. I give you a few minutes to think about it, write it down, and we want to understand these tasks because had you left the class without understanding these changes, I mean, getting the basic concept, it was that the purpose was not met. So when I give you tasks, I expect you to stay in the class, we discuss it. If you have questions, you gotta ask your questions, and then we will finish the class. Oh yes, that's a good example, Mr. Harwell. The rate of technological change, but you got to be specific, like what change and how it affects your company. You can say this change happened. Let's say you say this software was introduced in the market and that caused this much sales increase or decrease in our company. That's a good example. But be specific. So please make sure to send those to me by tomorrow, end of the day. And are there any questions before we end the class? Any questions or comments? Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for attending the class. What I'm doing is I'm just trying to get those emails that yeah, so what I will do with your assignments, I'll keep them and I'll score them. It's part of your score, your final score. So those assignments I need for your scoring purposes. That's why we discuss it in the class. So that's why I need just a copy of them. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome to ask via email or in the class. Those of you, I cannot find your emails. Those of you who have not received the slides, can you give me your email one more time again? I want to send you those slides because I did send you today, and also for the previous sessions I have been sending you. Has anybody who has not received them? Coffee. Okay. So copy. So everybody else has received, right? These are the only ones who have not received. And yeah, for those of you who have not received, I just want to get your email because I have sent you today and the previous sessions. Just wanted to make sure you got it. Okay, that's good. You guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week. Okay, thank you.